Hello, viewers. D.H. Lawrence, David Herbert Lawrence, he had written many novels and novella, but the novella which I'm going to discuss with you today is the name of the same is The Virgin and the Gypsy. This novella is published in 1930. That this novella delves into theme. The theme of this novella is desire, repression, class conflict, and the quest for personal freedom. Set in a post-World War England, the story explores the inner life of its protagonist, V.T. Seville, and her encounter with the gypsy who awakens her suppressed desire. So the setting of this novella is set in a small conservative village in England, where the rigid social norms of the time stifle the lives of the character. The story primarily takes place at the rectory, the home of the Seville family, which symbolizes the oppressive atmosphere that Whitty seeks to escape. The plots of this novel is a young woman in her early 20s living with her father, the rector, and her older sister, Lucille. Their mother abandoned the family years earlier, an act that still casts a shadow over their lives. Whitty feels trapped in the stifling environment of the rectory, where her father and aunt Sissy enforce strict moral and social codes. The arrival of the gypsy took another turn in her life when she encounters a mysterious and sensual gypsy while out on a drive. The gypsy, who embodies freedom and a connection to nature, represent everything that Whitty finds lacking in her life. She is immediately drawn to him, sensing in him a means of escape from her repressive surrounding, conflict in a social norm with the social norm. Witty fascination with the gypsy put her at odds with the conservative value of her family and the village. She becomes increasingly aware of the hypocrisy and suffocating morality that govern her world. Her interactions with the gypsy challenge the boundaries of acceptable behavior and stirs her up her repressed desire. Whitty awakening through her encounters with the gypsy, Whitty experiences a personal and sexual awakening. She begins to question the limitation imposed on her by her family and society, yearning for a life of greater freedom and authenticity. The climactic flood. The novella reaches its climax with a catastrophic flood that threatens to engulf the rectory. In the midst of this natural disaster, Whitty inner turmoil comes to a head. The gypsy arrives to save her from the flood, symbolizing both a literal and metaphorical escape from the life that has confined her. The flood acts as a cleansing force, sweeping away the old constraints and offering Whitty a chance at rebirth. The theme of this novel is repression versus desire. The novella explored the theme of sexual repression, particularly within the context of the rigid social and moral codes of the time. Whitty lives at the rectory is characterized by emotional and sexual suppression, which is challenged by her encounter with the gypsy. Desire for freedom. Whitty's attraction to gypsies represent her desire for freedom and more authentic life. The gypsy, with his connection to nature and disregard for social conventions, embodies the possibility of liberation from the repressive forces that dominate her life. Class conflict is also involved in this. Social boundaries we see in this novella highlights the social boundaries that separate the gypsy from the rest of the village. Witty attraction to gypsy is scandalous, not only because of sexual implication, but also because it crosses the rigid class lines of the time. Critique of bourgeois society. Lawrence critiqued the bourgeois values of the village, which he portrays as hypocritical and stifling. The rectory, as the home of the rector, symbolizes the moral and social authority of the bourgeoisie, which Witty increasingly finds intolerable. Nature and spirituality, connection to nature, the gypsies associated with nature. Vitality and a primal spirituality that contrast with the sterile, lifeless environment of the rectory. Lawrence often uses natural imagery to convey the gypsy's connection to a more authentic and elemental way of life. Spiritual awakening in this Witty's encounter with the gypsy lead to a spiritual awakening as she becomes more attuned to her own desire and to the natural world. The flood and the natural force represent both destruction and renewal, offering Witty a chance to break free from her old life. Personal identity and transformation. Witty's growth throughout the novella. Witty undergoes significant personal growth. Her journey is one of the self-discovery as she confronts her desire and the limitation imposed on her by society. By the end of the story, she is poised to embrace a new identity, free from the constraints that have defined her life to the point. Transformation through crisis. The flood served as a catalyst for Witty's transformation, sweeping away the old order and allowing her to envision a new future. The crisis forces her to confront her fears and desire, leading to a profound change in her sense of self. The character involved in this novella is, first character is Witty Seville, the protagonist of this novella. Witty is a young woman who feels suffocated by conservative, repressive environment of the rectory. Her attraction to the gypsy and her experiences with him led her to question the values of her family and society, and to seek a more authentic and liberated life. The gypsy is another character, a mysterious and sensual figure. The gypsy represents freedom, nature, and primal spirituality that contrasts with the stifling environment of the rectory. He plays a key role in Witty's personal awakening and transformation. Lucille Seville, Witty's older sister, Lucille is more conventional and resigned to the life at the rectory. She represents the acceptance of social norms and the suppression of personal desire, contrasting with the Witty's growing sense of rebellion. Another character, the rector, the Witty's father. Rector is a symbol of authority, both in the family and in the village. A strict adherence to moral social codes reflect the broader societal forces that seek to control and repress the individual desire. Aunt Sissy, the rector's sister, Aunt Sissy, is a domineering, moralistic figure who reinforces the conservative values of the family. She plays a significant role in maintaining the repressive atmosphere of the rectory. So, style and structure of this novella is written in the third person, allowing Lawrence to explore Witty's inner thought and emotion as she navigates the conflict and challenges of her life. The narrative is introspective and often delves into psychological and emotional detail, reflecting Lawrence's interest in the inner lives of his character. Symbolism, Lawrence uses rich symbolism throughout the novella, particularly in his depiction of the gypsy, the flood, and the rectory. The gypsy represent a force of nature and freedom, while the flood symbolizes both destruction and renewal. The rectory, in contrast, is a symbol of repression and stifling influence of bourgeois values. So the novella pacing reflects Witty's journey from repression to awakening. The story builds gradually towards the climatic flood, which serve as the turning point in Witty's transformation. The Virgin and the Gypsy was published after Lawrence's death, D.H. Lawrence's death, and is considered one of his more accessible work. Its exploration of themes like desire, freedom, and class conflict resonate with many of the ideas Lawrence developed in his earlier work. Critical reception, while not as famous as some of Lawrence's other work, the novella has been praised for its lyrical prose, its rich symbolism, and its insightful exploration of human psyche. It's often studied in the context of Lawrence's broader oeuvre, particularly in the relation to his other work that explores similar themes of repression and liberation. So, the novella was adapted into a film in 1970, which brought it to a wider audience. Virgin and Gypsy is a poignant and thought-provoking work that captures D.H. Lawrence's deep interest in the complexities of desire, identity, and social constraint through the story of Witty's Seville. Lawrence examined the ways in which the individual struggled to break free from the repressive forces of society and find a more authentic way of living. Thank you very much for patient listening.